Dear listeners, from the platform of Kashana-e-Baseerat, I am Nighat Raza, bringing to you the reading of Fatima is Fatima by Dr. Ali Shariyati. Today's reading embarks from page 146 with the subtitle, The Death of the Prophet. He can no longer rise. All images suddenly change in her eyes. The pure and good Medina now flows with hatred and fear. Politics pushed faith and piety from the city of Muhammad. The promise of brothers are broken apart and tribal oaths are again being renewed. The Prophet is no longer a leader. Ali is sent for Aisha and Hafsa called their fathers. Ali is sent for, Aisha and Hafsa called their fathers. Yesterday the voice of Umar was heard saying the ritual prayer, and today she hears the voice of Abu Bakr. The army stands without words. Against the words and even insults of her father, they will not move. From all the corners come objections about the choice of Usama as the leader of the army, although her father had himself chosen him and had given him the banner of leadership. Today is Thursday, and what a Thursday. A rain of tears fall from the eyes of my father. He orders, "Bring a tablet and pen so that I can write something, so that when I am gone, you will not be led astray." They cause an uproar. They do not allow it. They say he is just mumbling. They say the book of God exists and there is no need of writing anything. And now the father no longer speaks. Now the house of Aisha, which is wall to wall with my house, is silent. His head is in Ali's lap. His eyes are beginning to close. He is speaking to me more with his eyes. I can no longer bear all of these difficulties. He is my father. I am his mother. If he leaves me in this city with all the uproar of these people, he does not take his eyes off me. He is more worried about me. He read in my face that I am suffering. His heart bleeds for me. Fatima, his daughter, his youngest daughter, his most beloved daughter. He indicates things to me with his eyes. I lean my face over and place it on his. He whispers to me that his sickness is death. I will die. I pick up my head. Misery and terror so overcome me that I lose all my strength. The misery of remaining alive after my father almost tears my heart apart. Why does he just give me this message? I, who am the weakest amongst all the rest. But his look is fixed upon me. His heart burns from his youngest daughter, who, like a baby, is addicted to him. He again indicates that I should draw near. It is as if he wants to continue what he had been saying. But you, my daughter, will be the first person from among my family who will come after me and who will join me. Then he adds, "Are you not satisfied, Fatima, that you will be the leading woman of these people?" What a significant condolence. What good news could lessen the pain of this misery except this? The news of the death of my father. God bless you, Father. How well you know how to give condolences to Fatima. I understand why among all these people I alone must hear the news of his death. Now I have found the strength of crying and mourning. The man is dying. Clouds gather humidity from his white face, the protector of orphans and the refuge of widows. Suddenly the Prophet opens his eyes and says, Fatima, this poem is in praise of Abu Talib. Don't recite a poem in my praise. Recite the Quran. Recite. Muhammad is no more than a prophet. Other prophets have been sent before him. If he dies or killed, you will go backwards and you will return to the reactionary despotism of ancient time. Then he says, God cursed those who set up the graves of their prophets as places of worship. While whispering to himself, he says, is there a place in hell for oppressive dictators? He continues, we've given that home in the next world to those who do not oppress and create corruption. Whosoever does want these should not seek them, should not do them. The politicians do not allow him to write anything, but ask him to just say what it is he wants to write. What do you want to write? Annoyed, he looks at them and says, what I intend to do is better than what you call me for. In answer to those who are asking him what he wants to write, he says, I counsel you to 3 things. First, push the polytheists out of the Arabian Peninsula. Secondly, accept the agents of the tribes in the way that I accepted them. Third, suddenly they all look at Ali. He is silenced by his sorrow. The father is silent. The duration of his silence continues. Looking into a corner, tears well in his eyes, and he continues thinking. They leave. I screamed in pain. My grief is from your grief, father. In a tone of peace, in answer to me, he says, there will never be any sorrow for your father again. My father's lips were sealed, the lips which recited the revelation, lips which had kissed his daughter and her children. He regarded us for a while, and then his eyes closed. Blood flowed from his throat. His head was upon Ali's chest. Ali held a frightening and heavy silence. As you say, he died before my father. Aisha lamented upon my father's head, as did his other wives. Yes, yes. The moments passed in the silence of death. Suddenly, his hands, which were in a position of prayer upon Osama's head, fell to his sides, and his lips moved. To my highest friend, all things ended. Father, O Father, you accepted God's invitation. You went to Gabriel. Outside there was an uproar. The city was crying with hesitation and fear. I heard the cries of Umar, who said, the Prophet has not died. He rose to heaven like Jesus Christ. He will return. Whosoever says the Prophet has died is a hypocrite. I will cut off his head. Several hours passed. I became quiet. I saw that Abu Bakr and Umar entered the room. Abu Bakr pulled back the covering over my father's face. He cried and left. Umar also left. Ali began the work of ablution and putting on the white cloth of the dead. My husband Ali, Abul Hassan, father of Hassan, one of Ali's titles, washed the pure body of my father while he continued crying. He poured water upon him and fire upon my soul. People had lost their prophet. People remained without refuge. The companions without a leader. But Ali and I lost everybody and everything. Suddenly I sensed that in this city, in this world, we were exposed. All at once everything turned around. Faces changed. Terror fell from the door and wall. Politics replaced truth. The hands which had shaken in binding brothers together to their oaths moved distances apart, and relatives moved closer. The elders and the aristocracy took on a new life beside the cold body of my father, the prophet of God and messenger to the people. For Ali and myself, the event is so terrible that we could think of nothing but the death of the prophet. The city was full of plans, plots, and conflicts, and for us, existence all at once, one time, emptied itself. While there was the shadow of fear upon the face of Abbas, our oldest uncle, he came and in a tone of full meaning and frightened, addressed Ali. Put your hands forward so that I can give my allegiance to that they can say the uncle of the prophet of God gave his allegiance to the son of the uncle of the prophet of God. The members of your family will also give their allegiance to you. When this is finished, no one will be able to oppose it. What? Is there someone who wants this position? Tomorrow you shall know. Ali sensed the danger, but his sense of danger passed through him like lightning and left. He was inwardly overflowing with sorrow. Muhammad was his relative, his father, his guardian, his teacher, his brother, his friend. The Prophet was his total capital, faith, feelings, and existence of Ali. He could not bring himself to think about the events taking place outside of his home. He sensed its spirit under his cold hands. He sensed a trembling. He did the ablution. He was busy with the Prophet, and I with his children, my children. Hassan was 7, Hussein was 6, Zainab was 5, and Kulsum was 3. Destiny had planned a life of enmity for the younger children after his death. Outside the city at Saqifa, the emigrants, Ansars of the Prophet gathered together to choose the representative for the Prophet from among themselves. They felt that the Quraysh of Makkah had their own plans. Abu Bakr, Umar, and Abu Ubaidah have arrived, and they convinced them that the Prophet had said leaders are from among the Quraysh. They reasoned that the replacement for the Prophet must be from among his family. As a result, Abu Bakr was chosen at Saqifa. And Fatima tasted in life in the skirts of her mothers and beside her father, a time when there was no longer any effects of the wealth of her mother, the peacefulness of the life of her father, and the happiness of her youth with her sisters. Her mother became old and broken. Her mother's age had passed beyond 65 years. Happiness, wealth, and the good fortune of life were replaced by weakness, poverty, and difficulties, an environment of hatred, the treachery of her family, and strangers. And her mother, Khadija, before being the mother of Fatima and the wife of Prophet, was the first associate and the greatest companion of a man who had to bear the heavy load and the troubles of the mission, the one upon whom the mission of heaven had fallen, the mission of removing the blackness of ignorance, the mission of returning the fire of God to mankind, freeing people from their chains of bondage, changing the economic system of slavery from the prison of the thought of idol worship, is now the mother of Fatima, but completely occupied with Muhammad, who inwardly had received a wonderful storm of thoughts and feelings about that which is above life and happiness. Around her, a fire full of hatred and troubles of the worship of materially and enmity spread. Around her, a fire full of hatred and the troubles of the worship of materiality and enmity spread. The mother of Fatima is busy with the difficulties and the revolution of Muhammad. Muhammad lives amongst his troubles and his revolution, the message of God and his people. There is no heart which would sense that Fatima was now feeling. The love of Fatima for the Prophet was much more than the love of a daughter for her father, the daughter who was also the mother of her father, the sympathizer with him in his exile and loneliness, acceptance of his troubles and his sorrow, companion in the religious struggle, a link in the chain of his confines, his last daughter, and during the last years of his life, his only child. After his death, she was his only survivor, the light of his home, the only pillar of his family, and finally, the one mother of his children, his inheritors, the wife of his Ali. Just when Fatima needed the love of her mother and the kindness of her father, she senses that her mother and father, who had both only lived with pain, loneliness, and misery, needed her childlike kindness and caresses. Her sympathies and her life with him was only 40 years of death. A house which had made them housemates was the result of their being homeless. The attraction which they had between their family had made them strangers with others and exiled in life. It was their loneliness which brought them together. There is a saying that a heart which finds a friend through trouble and sorrow develops a friendship which, in comparison to a love based on happiness and pleasure, is much deeper and more certain. The feeling of which one views about one has lived one's life and one's friend has answered one's needs is not the same as the feeling of familiarity one senses with the friend in one's own being. For when one sees that one has sacrificed one's life and that the needs of the friend have been met, the spirit in the heights of its subtleness and the depths of his feelings from the friendship and faith form another spirit within the self, senses our relatedness with the spirit of friendship. Perhaps both feelings are the same, but they have opposite orientations. No, they are not the same, because to give friendship and to give love are not one and the same thing. And Fatima gave such friendship to the Prophet that there is no comparison to one who gives love to one's father. The intimacy and purity of feelings which she had towards him created a continuous link and a situation incapable of being described. With the spirit of her father within, she was able to bear the years of difficulties, hatred, fear, and torture. She bore the fact that her hero father was sacrificed, for he was among those who remained a stranger in his own country and unknown in his own city, alone among his family, those who spoke his language. He remained without someone to talk to. He had to confront all sides. He had to stand face to face with ignorance and idol worship, in wild conflicts with untamed elders, petty aristocrats, and hated slave dealers. The shoulders were bent upon under the heavy weight of the divine mission of the one God, alone in this long walk from slavery to freedom, from dark valleys of Mecca to the heights of the peaks of the mountain of light, alone and without a companion, while his soul was suffering from the hatred, plots, and unawareness of the people, and his body was wounded from the troubles and blows of the enemy. He tried harder than anyone else to bring happiness and salvation to the tribe he was appointed to, and yet he and his family suffered because of the troubles his tribe caused him. They treated him as a stranger. On the one hand, he was alone, a suffering spirit, bearer of the revelation, and on the other, he was a storm of love, fiery faith. Tribal enmity, the unconsciousness of the people, the loneliness of not having anyone, and the heavy weight of the load of the trust he had brought caused him anguish. God had offered the burden of bearing the weight of the heavens and the earth to the mountains, but it was rejected. Only mankind was willing to accept the responsibility. In following this, the Prophet every day from the morning till night would cry out a warning to whomever passed by the Safa hills of the danger and the people who were asleep and passive-faced. He did this under the rain of problems that sought him out each day. He announces the message in the sacred precinct of the Masjid al-Haram, beside the Darul Nadwa, the meeting place of the wealthy Quraysh aristocrats, and before the eyes of 330 dumb, senseless, spiritless idols who were the gods of the people. He calls the people to awaken the cries for freedom. At the end of the day, tired and exhausted, wounded internally, his heart overflowing with pain, he returns to a silent home, empty-handed, followed by mockery. Within his home, there was a woman, broken under the sufferings of life, her body and her whole existence full of love, her two eyes waiting in anticipation, watching the door. Fatima, a young girl, a weak, moved step by step with her father through the streets full of hatred within the Masjid al-Haram, under the taunts of curses, mockery, contempt, and difficulties. Whenever he falls, he becomes like a bird that has fallen out of the nest. When a bird falls from its nest, the possibility arises that it will fall into the claws and beaks of the wild animals or birds. Fatima throws herself upon her father. With all of her strength, she protects him. With all her small white hands, she takes her hero into her arms. With the edge of her small, fine fingers, alive with kindness, she cleans the blood from her father's head and hands. She heals his wounds, and with her soft words, she encourages the man who carries the word of God. She returns him to their home. She is a link of kindness, attraction, and love between a suffering mother and a suffering father. When her bloodied father returns from theft, she alone comes forward to greet him, and with her childlike and daring efforts attracts him to herself. In spite of all of his worries and troubles, she attracts his heart towards her warm deception. In the valley of the confined, she lives 3 years beside her sad, bed-ridden, elderly mother and a suffering father with all of his difficulties. She bears hunger, sorrow, loneliness. After the death of her mother and the uncle of the great prophet, she fills the sudden emptiness of the life of her father with her feelings, kindness, and endless understanding, for he is now both within the home and outside of it. She acts as a mother to her father, who is now very much alone. She devotes love, faith, and all the moments of her life to her father. Through her kindness, the feelings of her father are fulfilled. Through her devotion and faith in the mission of her father, she gives him energy and honor. By going to Ali's house and by accepting his noble poverty, she gives him hope. Through Hassan, Hussein, and Zainab, she offers her father the sweetest and dearest fruits of her life, full of sorrows in return for the fact that her father did not have a son and had seen the death of his 3 infant sons, 3 grown-up daughters. These are the roots. They are deeper than those of the feelings of a child, which extend her for whole life of 18 or 28 years. Stronger than life, purer than will and faith, richer than liking someone, and at the same time woven together from all of the other golden webs of the beyond, are all created in the soul, depth, and conscience of Fatima. They joined her with the spirit of her father. And now all of these roots suddenly become disconnected through the thorn of the death of her father. Fatima must now remain without him and live. How terrifying and heavy is this blow to the thin heart and weak body of Fatima, this girl who is alive only through the love of her father, through faith in the faith of her father, and because of her father. It is no accident that the Prophet upon his deathbed consoles her and gives her the strength of bearing her father's death. This strength is the only gift from the death of her dear one. This special news is that she will join him sooner than any of the others. Excuse me. Because Fatima is afflicted with the heaviest blow which nature in his power can give, she suddenly falls into the most painful and most broken state. The death of her father is enough for her, but another blow comes to her as well, a blow which, even though it did not have the strength of the first, it was at least as deep and perhaps deeper. The hand of fate gives her no respite. The second blow follows close upon the first, with only a few hours separation. Someone else is elected to take the place of the Prophet. What difference does it make if this person was Abu Bakr or anyone else for that matter? It was not Ali. Dear readers, with this we come to the end of this chapter which we are reading, and we come to page 154 of the book. Next time we will begin with chapter 16 with the title Her Final Struggle. Until then, I beg you leave. Khuda Hafiz, Fi Aman Allah.